between 2004 and August 30th, 2022. They were published on Thursday in the 2022 Annual Report on Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. The office confirmed just 144 UFO reports in the 17 years spanning from 2004 to 2021. That's supposedly when they started seeing a marked increase in reports. In the months since then, there was an increase of 366 reports. 247 of them were new reports. The office notes that many cases remain unresolved. It is unclear if there are more phenomenon or just more reporting. Most of the new cases were reported by U.S. Navy and U.S. Air Force aviators and operators while on duty. You can get into national parks for free this
China or the Chinese regime is playing by different rules. So given the stakes here, what should the U.S.'s next steps be?
Well, I think we should first and foremost continue to encourage countries that want to go to the moon, participate in the future space economy based on resource extraction on the moon, energy generation. We should encourage as many countries as possible to sign on to the Artemis Accords and join all of the other countries that have pledged to a program of peaceful behavior. That would be our first defense, if you will, of a peaceful future for the moon. But secondly, we should also be prepared. We should have in reserve the means to send to the moon equipment that could defend our people.
And that's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Don Ma. If you have any...
These shared democratic values are the source of our strength, source of our alliance.
An important backdrop for the meeting is threats from China. Just weeks ago, Japan announced an unprecedented military buildup, citing concerns over Chinese actions in the Indo-Pacific.
And Japan and the United States are currently facing the most challenging and complex security environment in recent history.
The U.S. and Japan are set to expand their military cooperation, including by improving Japan's missile strike abilities and better preparing the U.S. Marine unit in Japan for potential combat. Biden pledges the U.S.'s full commitment.
The United States is fully, thoroughly, completely committed to the alliance. More importantly, to Japan's defense.
But while Biden was all smiles in front of cameras, he's facing a burgeoning controversy of his own, as the DOJ appoints a special counsel to investigate his handling of classified papers. The White House on Friday again saying
We're going to continue to fully cooperate. We have been.
But as to what Biden said on Thursday,
we're going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon.
The White House doesn't know when that's going to come.
When can people expect to hear from you?
Don't have, again, that is something that I don't have a magic wand here. I don't know when that's going to happen.
And as usual, Biden's heading back this weekend to his home in Wilmington, Delaware. And that's where the second batch of classified documents was found. Reporting from the White House, Iris Howe, NTD News.
Committee. That's according to Chairman Jim Jordan, who's also prepping investigations into other federal agencies over what he's calling the weaponization of the federal government. NTD's Melina Wisecup brings us the latest.
The GOP-led Judiciary Committee hitting the ground running. Chairman Jim Jordan probing the Attorney General's newly created special counsel investigating Biden's handling of those classified documents. Chairman Jordan sending a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland today, probing further on this issue, asking questions such as when the DOJ first became aware of the existence of those documents and any conversations that the DOJ or FBI or White House may have had on this issue. Now, this will be the very first investigation that the Judiciary Committee is launching, and it comes just days after the House voted, of course, along party lines, to create that select subcommittee that's under the Judiciary Committee on the weaponization of the federal government, where they will be probing further agencies like the DOJ and the FBI. Here's Jordan laying out the top priorities for these investigations.
The Department of Justice treats parents as terrorists, moms and dads who are simply showing up at a school board meeting to advocate for their son or daughter a ploy. It's not a ploy when the FBI pays Twitter $3 million. Not one, not two, $3 million to censor American citizens. It's not a ploy when the Department of Homeland Security tries to set up a disinformation governance board, but because we all know that the Department of Homeland Security can tell what's good speech and what is bad speech, what's I mean, you got to be kidding me.
And Jordan says there's been multiple whistleblowers come forth with concerns in these areas. Democrats, however, argue that this committee is hyper-partisan and meant to shield Republicans from ongoing federal investigations into the January 6th Capitol breach.
As we have members in this chamber who themselves may be subjects of investigation upon an agenda that many of my Republican colleagues have said is anchored in ultimately wanting to defund the FBI.
And Democrats do plan to seat members on this 13-member committee, even though they don't agree with it. Congressman Pete Aguilar, who's the Democrat caucus chairman, told us earlier this week that they do plan to have members on every committee that's created by the Republican leadership to have representation. At the same time, he mocked this newly created subcommittee as a so-called tinfoil hat committee. Democrats, of course, argue that the types of investigations that will be taking place here are simply conspiracy theories, while Republicans, of course, would push back, saying that these investigations are substantive and are aimed at preventing the federal government from trampling on the constitutional rights of Americans. Now, in addition to this, the GOP is also laying the groundwork to investigate the Afghanistan withdrawal. The chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Michael McCaul, requested pages of information on this issue, asking questions like, what is the current relationship between the United States and the Taliban, and if the Biden administration had any negotiations with the Taliban prior to the withdrawal or even now. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
You know, to a certain extent, they blew this up in regards to President Trump, in regards to these documents that are classified. And we know that documents are overclassified in every administration. And so you wonder sometimes, is it making a lot out of a little? But the only problem for the Biden administration now is they've set the rules. They set the rules with President Trump. Now they need to live by those rules.
It's a very interesting point, Congressman, that you make there to not get ahead of the game and hyper politicize this. But I do want to go back to that one point that you made when it comes to the Penn Biden Center. There is talk of dark money, Chinese money, to gain access to government officials, something that happens in Washington. Does this need to be investigated thoroughly, and do you think it will be?
Yeah, as I said in my comments, the Penn Biden Center angle of it, that is the most important. Based on what we know right now, that is the most important thing that we need to find out. Is there a connection with the Chinese government, especially as we go into hearings and investigations into the Hunter Biden laptop, the connections that we know the Biden family had with Burisma and the Ukraine? I mean, is this part of a bigger picture? Is this part of the puzzle? And we really need to dig on that. And I'm sure hoping that this special counsel is going to dig deep. And I suspect that there's going to be enterprising reporters and others that are going to start taking a really hard look at, after having seen the roadmap, to who is helping fund these Biden family's interests.
Well, I have to say it's been heartening to see that what seems to be uniting issue on the House floor has been China. Two significant votes passed, bipartisan, a lot of Democrats joining Republicans. There's another issue that's just been passed, an abortion bill through the House. You've been very outspoken over this. Tell us about that bill and why it matters to you.
Yeah, it's the Born Alive bill. So in other words, if a child is born alive via the process of an abortion, that child should be saved. It should be given every opportunity to receive life-saving medical care, just like we would do with any other infant. To me, that's just really an easy bill. I was very surprised that there were so few Democrats that came over and said, hey, if life comes into this world, we should save it. But it gets messed up in the whole abortion politics and stuff. But the thing that I really focused on, Steve, was the bombing, the firebombing at the Wisconsin Family Action Center in Madison. They're an advocacy group for life here in Wisconsin, headquartered in Madison, and they got bombed out in the last year. And we've seen very little action on the part of the Department of Justice to go after those people who are the perpetrators of that. Because there's a group called Jane's Revenge that has done other actions across the country that they've used violence and nothing is coming out of it. And I'm very concerned that both at the federal level as well as the state level, our Department of Justice in Wisconsin has not made progress on this, and they need to dedicate more time to it, because violence of any kind like that should be met with the toughest, most complete law enforcement review as possible to bring the perpetrators to justice.